Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that a man can be completely composed on the outside, calm, confident, unbothered, while secretly fighting a losing battle on the inside because of you? What if the strongest, most guarded men you know have 4 hidden behaviors that expose the truth they'll never dare to say out loud, that you are their weakness? Today, I'm going to reveal those exact signs. The ones he can't control, the ones he can't hide, and the ones that prove you've touched a part of him he doesn't show to anyone else. If you've ever wondered whether he feels you deeper than he admits, don't blink. The signs you're about to hear will change the way you read every man in your life. When a man sees you as his weakness, he rarely announces it. Instead, it leaks through the cracks of his behavior. The little moments where he forgets to guard himself, the subtle ways he reveals what he's trying so hard to hide. Men are taught to be composed, controlled, intentional. But emotional attraction has a funny way of disrupting even the most disciplined facade. When he tries to act strong around you, it's often because you've already hit a place in him that makes him feel exposed. His actions become louder than anything he could ever say. You'll notice it first in the way he pays attention. Not the kind of polite attention people give out of courtesy, but the kind that comes from someone who is quietly invested. He watches your expressions when you speak, he notices when your tone shifts, and he remembers things you only mentioned once. A man who sees you as his weakness becomes hyper-attuned to you, even when he's pretending not to be. It's not strategic, it's instinctive. When you matter to him, he can't help but tune in. If something bothers you, he notices. If something makes you smile, he stores it. The smallest details suddenly become significant to him because they're connected to you. And yet, he still tries to act like he's unfazed. He tries to play it cool, to maintain emotional balance, because admitting that you affect him would mean surrendering control. For most men, especially the ones who pride themselves on composure, losing control is uncomfortable. So he compensates by acting tougher, calmer, or more indifferent than he actually feels. But emotions don't sit quietly, they leak. His voice might soften when you're upset. His eyes might linger when you're happy. His energy might shift when you walk into a room. Even when he's trying to hide it, he reveals more than he intends to. His desire to impress you is another sign he's trying to hold back. He may not say, "I want to be good enough for you," but he shows it. He fixes his posture when you appear. He becomes more thoughtful with his words. He tries to appear capable, reliable, or confident. But here's the truth he won't admit out loud. A man only tries to impress the woman who genuinely affects him. If you didn't matter, he wouldn't care. If you weren't special, he wouldn't adjust himself. The effort he puts into being seen a certain way around you is a quiet confession of how deeply you've impacted him. Even his jealousy is controlled, measured, but present. He won't tell you he's bothered when another man gets your attention, but you'll feel the shift. His responses become shorter or a little colder. He might suddenly change the subject or try to subtly re-establish his presence. He won't admit he's jealous because that would reveal too much, but his discomfort gives him away. A man who sees you as his weakness wants to remain the person you think of first, even if he pretends it doesn't matter. And then there's the push and pull, the emotional tug-of-war he creates without meaning to. When a man cares deeply but is scared to show it, he becomes inconsistent. Not because he's confused about you, but because he's conflicted within himself. One moment he leans in because his feelings are too strong to hide. The next moment he steps back because those feelings scare him. This is where many women misunderstand the situation. They think inconsistency means lack of interest. But often, inconsistency is a sign of emotional overwhelm. He's trying to find a safe distance from someone who makes him feel vulnerable. You become the emotional mirror he's not ready to face. What truly gives him away is the way he reacts to your absence. When you're not around, he notices. When you pull back, he feels it. When you give him space, he fills it with thoughts of you. A man who sees you as his weakness cannot detach as easily as he pretends to. He might act like he's fine, like he's unaffected, like he's living his life without a second thought. But the moment something reminds him of you, he slips. He checks your social media. He replays conversations in his mind. He wonders whether you're thinking of him. Silence becomes unsettling for him. Distance becomes confronting. When you're gone, he realizes the emotional grip you truly have on him. You'll also notice that he becomes protective in subtle ways. Not possessive, protective. He'll walk on the outside of the street. He'll make sure you got home safely. He'll offer help without you asking. These are instinctive behaviors men display only when someone touches their heart. He might downplay it, make it seem casual, but his protective nature is a sign you've hit a part of him that he doesn't allow many people to access. And here's something important. He may even try to hide his growing attachment from himself. Men aren't just trying to stay composed for you, they're trying to stay composed for themselves. If he admits you're his weakness, he has to confront the possibility of losing you. He has to face the vulnerability of caring too much. So he stays guarded, convincing himself he's stronger than he feels. But no one can hide an emotional truth forever. His heart will always slip through his behavior. His friends often know before he does. They notice how he talks about you, how his mood shifts when you're mentioned, how he changes small things in his life because of you. Men rarely tell their friends, "She's my weakness," but their friends see the signs. They see the hesitation when he's asked about you. They see the spark in his eyes. They see the panic when he realizes how deeply he's starting to care. Even the way he argues with you is different. When he genuinely doesn't care about someone, he avoids conflict. But when he argues with you respectfully, passionately, or with effort to resolve things, it's because you matter. He fights for clarity because he fears losing connection. He tries to fix misunderstandings because your presence in his life is valuable to him. A man who sees you as his weakness wants harmony with you, even when he's too stubborn to admit it. And sometimes the biggest giveaway is the silence between you. When he pauses before speaking, when he hesitates before responding, when he slows down his words, he's thinking, he's choosing, he's trying not to reveal too much. His silence is not emptiness, it's calculation. He's filtering emotions he doesn't want you to see. You make him feel things he can't easily process, and that is exactly why he tries so hard to stay composed around you. But despite his efforts, the truth is impossible for him to fully hide. The man who sees you as his weakness moves differently with you. He softens even when he's trying to be firm. He notices even when he's pretending not to care. He cares even when he's acting indifferent. His behavior becomes a living confession of what he isn't ready to put into words. When you become a man's weakness, one of the strongest and most undeniable signs is the way you begin to influence his decisions without ever asking him to. It's not manipulation, not pressure, not persuasion. It's something far more powerful. It's the quiet emotional gravity you carry, the way your presence, your reactions, and even your silence begin to shape how he moves. A man who is deeply affected by a woman shows it not by what he says, but by what he adjusts. And when he starts adjusting his choices because of you, that's when you know you've reached a deeper layer of his emotions. One he might not even admit to himself. It often starts small. Maybe you casually mentioned a place you love, and suddenly he's suggesting you go there. Maybe you talked about a habit you admire in people, and suddenly he's working on it himself. Maybe you expressed a value or boundary, and he begins aligning with it even without being told to. These shifts aren't intentional strategies on his part, they're instinctive. When a man cares, your preferences become a reference point in his mind. You become a silent voice that guides him when he makes decisions. Even if he tries to appear unaffected, the influence is already embedded. And what's fascinating is that he doesn't even need permission to let your presence shape him. In fact, he wouldn't take that influence from just anyone. Men guard their independence fiercely. They protect their autonomy. So when a man allows his choices to be influenced by you, it's a sign of trust. He's letting you into his internal world, into the part of him that decides what matters. That alone reveals that you're more than a passing interest. You've reached the emotional center where his identity, his pride, and his future intersect. He begins thinking before acting, not out of fear, but out of care. He thinks about how his actions might affect you, how his decisions might make you feel, how his behavior might strengthen or weaken the connection. A man who is indifferent doesn't consider these things, but a man who sees you as his weakness does. If he's going somewhere, he thinks of whether you'd be comfortable. If he's making plans, he wonders how it aligns with you. If he's choosing a path, he considers whether it's something you'd respect. You become an invisible part of his decision-making process, someone he wants to honor even when you're not in the room. This influence extends far deeper than logistics. It touches the parts of him he rarely shares. He might start rethinking the way he approaches commitment because you show him what a healthy relationship could feel like. He might reconsider the pace at which he's been living because your presence brings a new perspective. He might examine his emotional tendencies because he values how you see him. When a man begins to self-reflect because of you, that is emotional influence at its highest level. You're not just affecting his choices, you're affecting who he's becoming. Your opinion begins to matter to him in ways he didn't expect. He asks for your thoughts. He seeks your perspective. He values your insight, not because he lacks confidence, but because he respects the way you see the world. Your mind becomes something he admires. Your worldview becomes something that shapes him. He listens more intently, not to win or impress, but because your words carry weight. When a man sees you as his weakness, your validation feels different to him. It hits deeper. It matters more than he wishes it did. Even a simple compliment from you can change his entire mood. Even a mild criticism makes him rethink things more than he would with anyone else. Your silence has influence too. When you go quiet, he feels it. When you withdraw ever so slightly, he notices instantly. When you're disappointed, even if you don't say it, he senses the shift. A man doesn't tune into emotional subtleties unless the person matters. If you had no influence over him, your silence wouldn't disturb him. But when you become his emotional weak spot, every tone change, every pause, every look becomes meaningful. Your energy affects his energy, even when he tries to stay stable. Your needs begin to shape his priorities. If you value emotional connection, he makes more effort to be present. If you value consistency, he becomes more reliable. If you value honesty, he tries harder to be transparent. If you value growth, he begins to push himself in ways he might have avoided before. This isn't him changing to please you. It's him evolving because you inspire him. That's the difference between forced influence and natural influence. When someone becomes your weakness, you naturally rise to who you want to be around them. You'll also notice that he becomes more intentional with his time. He rearranges his schedule to see you. He makes adjustments so he can show up when it matters. He creates space for you in his world rather than fitting you in wherever you happen to fit. Time is one of the most telling indicators of influence. A man who doesn't genuinely care won't shift his world for anyone. A man who does will quietly rearrange things without making it a big announcement. It's not sacrifice to him, it's alignment. Another sign of your influence is how he moderates his impulses. Where he might normally react quickly, he slows down around you. Where he might typically brush off conversations, he invests in them. Where he might avoid emotional depth, he moves toward it with you. And when he feels triggered or hurt, he tries not to lash out because your respect matters to him. He manages himself differently because he cares about the impact of his behavior on the connection. This kind of emotional restraint comes from a place of admiration and attachment. Even his ambitions shift. Men often define themselves through purpose and personal goals. When you become his weakness, you also become part of his vision, whether he admits it or not. He starts imagining where you'd fit in his future. He starts thinking about how decisions today might affect what's possible with you tomorrow. It's not about dependency, it's about connection. You become a factor in his long-term thinking, a part of the equation that didn't exist before. He doesn't have to say it the way he plans, gives it away. And then there's the subtle but profound influence of emotional safety. If he feels safe with you, he lets his guard down in ways he rarely does. He speaks more openly. He admits worries, stresses, hopes, dreams. Emotional safety is influence at its rawest. It means your presence disarms him, not because you weaken him, but because you make him feel understood. A man who views you as his weakness feels pulled toward that safety even if he doesn't know how to articulate it. People around him start noticing too. They see him checking his phone more often. They see him evaluating decisions through a new lens. They see him talk about you with a certain tone, a certain softness, a certain intensity. Even if he tries to hide it, others can see the imprint you've left on him. Influence is visible even when feelings are unspoken. Sometimes the biggest proof of your influence is how he grows. He becomes more thoughtful, more patient, more ambitious, more grounded. You become a mirror that reflects the best version of him, not because you force it, but because he wants to rise to the level of someone who has that kind of power over him. Men don't grow for women they're indifferent about. They grow for women who reach a place inside them that feels special, irreplaceable, and deeply meaningful. And that is what influence truly is. Not control, not pressure, not demands. It's your presence becoming an anchor in his internal world. It's you quietly shaping the way he thinks, decides, and lives. Your influence on him is the part he won't say out loud, because saying it would mean admitting how much power you hold in his life. But his decisions reveal what his words hide. A man rarely says the words, "You're my weakness." Most men don't even have the language for that kind of vulnerability. But they show it in the one place they can't completely control: their moments of emotional exposure. Vulnerability is not something men give lightly. It's not something they hand out casually. It's something they reveal only when a woman makes them feel safe enough to let the armor slip. And when he starts opening up in ways he doesn't with anyone else, when he shares pieces of himself he normally keeps hidden, that's when you know you've reached a depth inside him that he couldn't hide even if he tried. At first, it might come as a small shift. Maybe he tells you a story from his childhood that he hasn't told in years. Maybe he admits something that made him insecure or afraid. Maybe he reveals something he's been struggling with internally. For most men, this kind of emotional exposure is not natural. They've been taught to stay strong, stay silent, stay stoic. So when he lets you see these softer places, it's not because he wants to look weak. It's because he feels a connection he can trust. He doesn't choose vulnerability lightly. He offers it as a sign of closeness, even if he doesn't fully understand what he's doing. You'll notice the difference between the way he talks to you and the way he talks to others. With the world, he might be confident, composed, even guarded. But with you, there's a shift in tone. He becomes more thoughtful, more honest. He lets down the performance, the mask, the identity he shows everyone else. A man who sees you as just another person keeps his walls up. A man who sees you as someone who matters lets you into his internal world, sometimes without meaning to. You get access to a version of him that is unfiltered and unprotected. This vulnerability doesn't always come in deep emotional conversations. Sometimes it shows up in the little things. He admits when he's worried about something. He tells you when work is stressing him. He shares his doubts about a decision he made. He reveals when he felt hurt by something, even if he tries to downplay it. Men don't like admitting anything that makes them feel less strong. So when he tells you he's overwhelmed, confused, scared, unsure, or disappointed, that is emotional evidence that you have become someone he trusts on a deeper level. One of the biggest signs of vulnerability is when he lets you see him during his low moments. Not the polished version, not the strong version, the real version. Maybe you see him when he's tired and worn out. Maybe he opens up after a bad day. Maybe he admits he doesn't have everything figured out. These are the moments that reveal how much he feels for you. A man who doesn't care keeps those parts hidden. A man who cares deeply unintentionally invites you closer. You also become someone he seeks comfort from. He might not phrase it that way, but you'll feel it. When something is bothering him, he comes to you first. When he's excited about something, you're the first person he wants to tell. When he needs clarity, reassurance, or grounding, he turns to you. These are not the actions of a man who is lightly invested. They come from emotional dependency, the healthy kind. The kind that says, "Your presence makes my world feel steadier." He'll also start revealing his deeper fears about relationships, love, or life. Men rarely talk about these things openly. They don't want to feel vulnerable in front of people who might judge them or think less of them. So if he admits he's scared of losing people, scared of being hurt, or scared of not being enough, understand that he's sharing something sacred. He's giving you access to the places where he feels the most fragile. That's not a weakness. It's a sign you've become emotionally significant to him. You'll notice vulnerability in his body language too. The way he looks at you when he's searching for the right words. The way he pauses before saying something meaningful. The way he softens when he feels understood. The way his eyes linger a little longer when he's letting you in. These physical cues reveal what his mind is trying to hide, that he feels something strong, something he can't fully contain. Another form of vulnerability is when he apologizes sincerely. Men find it incredibly difficult to admit fault, especially with someone they care about. Pride gets in the way, ego gets in the way. But when he cares deeply, he doesn't want to lose the connection over something small, so he apologizes more thoughtfully. He tries to understand your feelings. He wants to fix misunderstandings rather than win arguments. His efforts to keep peace show how much your presence matters to him. He also shows vulnerability by telling you what he values about you. Maybe he compliments something unique about your character. Maybe he admires your strength, your kindness, your intelligence. Maybe he tells you that you inspire him or make him want to be better. Men don't say these things to just anyone. When he admires you out loud, he risks emotional exposure. He risks looking too attached, and yet he still says it. That alone reveals the depth of his feelings. Sometimes vulnerability shows up as emotional hiccups, those moments where he gets distant or suddenly quiet, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares so much that it scares him. Emotional closeness can be overwhelming for men who aren't used to feeling deeply. When he pulls back briefly, it's often because he's processing. He's asking himself if he's ready to let you all the way in. He's double-checking whether it's safe to feel what he feels. These moments of withdrawal are not rejection, they're fear. And fear only shows up where feelings exist. Another major sign is when he involves you in his personal world. Maybe he introduces you to people he trusts. Maybe he brings you to places that mean something to him. Maybe he shares his passions, his hobbies, his dreams. Letting someone into his world is one of the largest forms of vulnerability a man can offer. It means he wants you to see who he is beyond the surface. It means he wants you to understand him on a deeper level. He may also share long-term thoughts with you. Not necessarily commitments, but glimpses of the future. He talks about his goals, his plans, his fears about getting older, his hopes for the life he wants. Most men keep these thoughts internal. They don't voice them unless they feel emotionally connected. If he includes you in these conversations, even subtly, it's because he's imagining where you might fit. Not because he's ready to say it, but because his heart is already thinking it. Vulnerability also shows in the way he listens to you. He pays attention to your emotional world. He remembers what you tell him about your past, your wounds, your dreams, your fears. He wants to understand you because he wants to connect with you. A man who doesn't care listens to respond. A man who cares listens to understand. You'll see vulnerability in how he reacts when you're hurt. If something bothers you, he feels it. If you're upset, he becomes more attentive. If you're quiet, he tries to figure out why. His emotional sensitivity to your mood is a sign that your feelings affect him. That's vulnerability in disguise. Him caring so deeply that your emotional state influences his. One of the most powerful expressions of vulnerability is when he expresses gratitude for you. Maybe he says thank you for something small, something meaningful, or something emotional. Gratitude requires humility. It requires openness. It requires a willingness to acknowledge need. When a man says, "I appreciate you," he's admitting that your presence impacts him. And sometimes, the biggest sign of vulnerability is when he admits he doesn't want to lose you. Maybe he doesn't say it directly. Maybe he says it through actions, through effort, through showing up, through trying harder, through staying consistent, through choosing you even when it requires emotional risk. That is vulnerability at its highest form. Love expressed through courage instead of words. A man who shows vulnerability is a man whose heart is opening. He may not call it weakness, he may not say it out loud, but his willingness to reveal the unpolished, unfiltered, imperfect sides of himself is the quiet confession he can't hide. You have become the place where he feels safe enough to be real. That's how you know you're not just someone he likes. You're someone who has reached the softest, most guarded part of his soul.